Chiefs Kingdom. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Chiefs Report by Chad Sports. Today, we are talking about some breaking NFL news that I think the Kansas City Chiefs could potentially take advantage of. Definitely has a major impact on us, so we're going to break it down. And before we get into it, I got to tell you, anytime there's Kansas City Chiefs news, anytime there's Kansas City Chiefs rumors, we are your one-stop shop. We cover it all, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. But the focus of today's show, and I know you probably saw it on the title and the thumbnail, Tyreek Hill has been released by the Miami Dolphins. Could he be coming back to Kansas City? We're going to break down why or why not that might make sense for the Kansas City Chiefs, for general manager Brett Veach to go out and make that move. But first, let's talk about why are the Dolphins cutting him to begin with. So the primary reason, as is the reason for a lot of cuts that happen in the NFL, as is going to be the reason for a couple cuts that we're going to make in the next couple of weeks, Jawaan Taylor, it's cap space at the end of the day. It all comes back to cap space. Cap savings of $22 to $35 million for the Miami Dolphins, depending on whether or not they designate Tyreek Hill as a post-June 1st cut. And what that means we'll get into in a minute, but that's really all it comes down to. Tyreek remains a fantastic football player. In just 4 games with the Miami Dolphins, obviously before he went down with an absolutely gruesome knee injury, one that was just tough to watch, tough to see for anybody. He had, in 4 games, 21 receptions, 265 yards for an average of over 12 yards per catch and a touchdown. He remains a fantastic football player, but he is getting older, and that knee injury is a big concern. And when you add that into the cap space situation that Miami's already in, they're not quite as cap crunched as we are, but they were sitting on negative $15 million in cap space before this morning, and they did a flurry of releases, releasing not only Tyreek Hill, but also James Daniels, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and Bradley Chubb as well. They freed up a lot of room. Now let's get back to the post-June 1st cut idea, because this could have an impact on when and how we can sign Tyreek Hill. So if the Miami Dolphins do decide to designate Tyreek Hill as a post-June 1st cut, that would mean he would not come off of the books as a free and become a free agent until March 1st. Whereas if they do not designate him, he is a free agent today. Like, he could literally sign with a new team today, right now. He could fly to Kansas City and he could sign a deal with Brett Veach, sit down, and they could work one out. While we are talking right now, we could get that news if they did not designate him as a post-June 1st cut. Now, why would they designate him as a post-June 1st cut? To save extra cap space. So when an NFL team does that, and they get 2 of those every year, they get to spread the dead cap out over the current NFL season and the next NFL season. So it saves you a little bit of money and helps you kind of distribute that cap hit in general when you release somebody, the dead cap hit in this instance. And obviously there's always offsetting dead cap. So more or less would offset in this year and they would be able to save more money. So there is definitely incentive to do that, but it's not guaranteed that they would do that, because they could save the exact same amount of money by designating Bradley Chubb, who they also released today as a post-June 1st cut. They would save about $13 million in either instance, depending on how they went about it. And it's all really going to depend, and I know this is complicated, but stay with me for a minute here. This is all really going to depend on what they do with Tua. And why is that? So if they can trade Tua, they'll actually save a little bit of money. But if no one's interested in trading for Tua over the next couple of days, they're almost certainly going to release him. That's been the report. Excuse me. Gosh, can't find my words right now. That's been the report around the Miami Dolphins, is that they intend to get rid of Tua, whether that be trade or release. They would obviously prefer to trade him for cap reasons, but if push comes to shove, they were going to have to designate him as one of their 2 post-June 1st cuts, which obviously limits what else they can do and lowers the possibility that Tyreek Hill would be designated as a post-June 1st cut. So in our instance, all of this essentially to say, watch over the next couple of weeks to see what they do with Tua. If he does get released, Note whether or not it's a post-June 1st release, because if it is, that means Tyreek Hill almost certainly will not be one, and he could sign with the Chiefs any day between now and March 11th, or really at any time after that. Now, let's talk about, let's kind of come back to Kansas City. This is not Dolphins Today by Chad Sports with Nick Roloff. Shout out to Rolly, but this is not that. Could or would the Kansas City Chiefs actually sign Tyreek Hill when and if he does become available? Obviously, now we know why the Dolphins moved on from him. He's still a phenomenal football player. We do have a need at receiver. That's something we've talked about over and over again. But there's a critical situation with Tyreek Hill that I think Kansas City needs to get more clarity on before they would decide to sign him. I don't think you can make that decision before you know more about this situation. And we're going to break that situation down in just 1 second. But first, I got to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that's Prize Picks. Guys, shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports. Obviously, football's over, but anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and even the winter games. Right now, they've got winter games lineups available. I've got my lineup going on those today. I'm going with the less on Laura Nolte's finishing time. I'm going with the more on Alina Mueller's shots on goal, and I'm going with the more on Sarah Fillier's goals as well. My bad if the pronunciation game on that was not so strong, ladies. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports pick app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And unlike my pronunciations of those names, which were probably not right. But let's get back to the injury situation around Tyreek Hill. What is his injury status right now? That is the critical situation that you've got to get an answer on if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. If you really want to sign him, that's the #1 thing that you've got to address. What is going on there? Is he going to be able to play in 2026? Is he ever going to play again? I mean, these are serious questions that you have to ask. I feel like when that injury happened, I think that was the #1 narrative. Is this it for Tyreek Hill? And I still don't feel like we've gotten a definitive answer on that. Obviously, the way he's been speaking about it, and I said speaking, mostly posting on social media about it, it seems like he wants to play. It seems like Tyreek Hill wants to keep going, like he's confident that he can keep going. And not only that he does want to keep playing, but that he wants to keep playing in Kansas City. That he wants to come back and play with Patrick Mahomes. A number of posts have suggested that that seems to be something he's interested in doing. And let me be clear, if he can play, if he's cleared to go, I would love to have Tyreek Hill back in Kansas City. That'd be awesome to pair him back up with Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs have spent years trying to replace the impact that Tyreek Hill had on their offense. They've drafted a number of guys who have not been able to fill the production gap. Mecole Hardman, Sky Moore, Xavier Worthy, all of these guys brought into this offense to try to replace what Patrick Mahomes had when he was with Tyreek Hill. In 58 games, over 330 receptions between those two for over 4,000 yards. I would love him back. And again, we talked about his production last year with Miami. He's still a solid football player. Even at this age, you still have questions about how he's going to come back. But I think those questions can be, I don't know what's the word here, qualmed maybe with the right contract structure here. So first, before we get into contract structure, let's talk about what the recovery timeline looks like. And remember, we're speculating here. I'm not a doctor at the end of the day, and I definitely haven't evaluated Tyreek Hill. But Jackson Health Systems, who also, I think they haven't evaluated Tyreek Hill either. They speculated a 9 to 12 month recovery time from an injury like this. Big window there. But I think that window probably does encompass when he'll be back. And that would have him back anywhere from June to September of the current year. So coming back anywhere from June to 2026 to September of 2026. So you get to play the entire preseason timeline to you might be coming back in the middle of the year, kind of like week 4, week 5 range at that point, depending on if he's on the conservative or the, aggressive end of the timeline. So that's not that bad at the end of the day. Worst case scenario, it seems like, and again, according to Jackson Health Systems, this is speculative, he would miss a couple weeks in the season. Not too bad. But again, this is not a evaluation from Tyreek Hill's doctor. This is something the Chiefs are going to have to do their serious due diligence on, and obviously will do their due diligence on if they're serious about signing Tyreek Hill, which I think they should be serious about signing Tyreek Hill. This is something you definitely should investigate. And what I would want to do is structure the deal like this. 1 to 2 years maximum. Bonuses for every game that he plays in 2026. Let those bonuses make up the vast majority of the contract. I think this contract should have very little in guaranteed money. I think it should be laden with incentive-based bonuses for actual production and per game played bonuses for when he becomes healthy. And then the last thing that you absolutely have to have on any deal that you do with Tyreek Hill, because you're going to want to be quick and you're going to want to be aggressive about signing him, but you can't forget what's going on in that aggression, in that race to sign Tyreek Hill, because there's going to be other teams that are interested, and you're obviously going to want to beat them to the punch. But include a provision that if he fails a physical, the contract voids. If he can't pass a physical, no deal. We don't do it. It voids out entirely. He goes back to being a free agent. I think you got to make him earn it a little bit here. Obviously, he is a phenomenal football player, but he's also a football player who's made plenty of money in his career. It's no longer about money at this point. It's about opportunity, an opportunity to get back to being seriously competitive for Tyreek Hill with the Kansas City Chiefs, because I do think he's the gap filler that we need on this offense right now to take it to the next level. Obviously, you got to make some moves on defense as well, but I think this offseason, if you make the right moves, Tyreek Hill being one of them, you could be right back at the top. And I think he knows that. I think he knows that coming to Kansas City would be an opportunity to compete for Super Bowls, just like he did when he was here originally. And if that's the structure of the deal, I think Tyreek Hill would sign that. I think Tyreek Hill's got a lot of incentive to prove himself, to get back out there, to show people that he can come back strong from this injury and earn the incentives that make up the deal to get him right back to being one of the higher paid receivers in the NFL. Make him go out there and earn that. You want to go be that? Go show you still are that, in my opinion. And I think he would be happy to go out and do it. And if you'd sign that deal, if you'd make that contract with Tyreek Hill, if you want Tyreek Hill back in Kansas City on a contract structure just like that, hit that sub button and comment yes for me. I will see you guys in the next one. As always, let's go Kansas City Chiefs.